right, welcome to the Honorable Judge Pittman radio show brought to you by Grand Valley State University. How you doing, the Honorable Gregory C. Pittman?
I'm doing good, PA. How's my sound, man? Is that good?
Yeah, you good. Yeah, you good. You real good. You loud and clear.
All right, good, man. Good. I'm doing great, PA. Thank you.
Yeah, you look like money over there. You're looking like money.
And I look like a bad check. I look like a check that's gonna bounce.
So I take it I take it you at the county building still.
I am.
They get their money's worth today?
Got their money's worth. They get it every day, PA. Every day. for can you believe, for 23 years.
Wow. What a blessing.
My 23rd year, man. Can you believe that?
Yeah, time is flying. Man. I remember when you was a magistrate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And before then, where was you before then?
I was in the firm over Williams, Hughes, Corwin, Senator.
Okay.
In the law firm there. Uh-huh.
And then you worked in Kent County, right?
Yeah. I was a public defender in Kent County.
So you've been all over. So you got a lot of experience, huh?
Hey man, you've been around for a while. You can't help but have some experience if you hang on a while, you know. Yeah. I've had some really, really good opportunities and gotten a chance to get my hands into a little of all kinds of law, you know. Yeah.
Right.
How
would you compare the 2021 Judge Pittman to the 2000 Judge Pittman?
Oh my goodness. Oh man, you don't have enough time, man. You don't have enough time, man. It's well, hey, PA, it's like everything else, man. You learn, you live and you learn. You live and learn, and you start to understand some things a little differently. And you know, one thing I think is safe to say is, at a certain point in your career, in your life, I'd imagine you feel the same way. Mm-hmm. You start to look at things like, what have I actually done here? You know, you start looking at a little bit at legacy, you know, and that's not to say that decisions are made differently because and people's lives are affected by my decisions differently because I'm thinking about that legacy. But you do want to make sure that the things that you do count for something, you know. Right. You know, and I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah. Impact, legacy. Yeah, you're right. You always you view it a little bit differently.
Yes.
No, you want your impact to have a lasting impression, effect on your community in a positive way.
Yeah, and you want to affect some people, you know. But see, I think you and I kind of share that spirit that, you know, we've not bragging or anything, but I think we kind of are kindred in the idea that we want to see other people get a leg up, a shot. You know, you want to help people. I never bought into PA, and I don't think you buy into. I never bought into the, hey, he's the first black judge, or, you know, all that kind of thing, because that kind of is one of those announcements of we've arrived. It's, you know, we're done. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting interviewed back in 1998 when I got appointed. And it was a television interview, and the person wanted to keep making a point of this being such a, you know, a watershed moment. And I finally said, listen, man, that's great. And I don't disparage that, but my concern is that I'm not the last.
Right.
My concern is that this, you know, this is no longer a novelty at some point, and this becomes the expectation.
Right.
You know, and I'm kind of at the point now. I'm sorry. I'm kind of at the point now in my career where I want to make sure that I'm not the last. You know, exactly. I want to help some young lawyers to who may have this aspiration to get themselves lined up the best way I think I understand how to, kind of position yourself for this opportunity.
Well, Judge, and that leads me to this question: Are you seeing any people thinking about running? I mean, I know you don't have to name them, but I haven't. When you look at these last few races, I don't think we had any black candidates.
Well, we still have a woefully lacking number of African American and Latinx type attorneys in this community, period. So, that pool is not really, that deep to begin with. I do know of two attorneys, young attorneys, who have expressed the idea that they have aspirations to get to the bench.
Good.
And I have tried and will continue, and we're working, to try to kind of map out a little bit of, just how to try to position yourself to be competitive when it's time for that opportunity to come.
Right. Well, family, you can, if you're listening to us on radio, go to our Facebook page and ask the judge a question. And here trying to answer. I got a few things I want to ask you about. Okay. One was the House passed the George Floyd Policing Act. I might get the title wrong, but they passed it last night and it's getting ready to go over to the Senate. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on this police reform bill?
Well, let me say this. So last night, that's really fortuitous. Last night, I was on a meeting with what is becoming a committee of my fraternity in this district, in the 10th district, which is Indiana, Minnesota, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Those are the 5 states in this district. And we were coming together to begin putting initiatives together regarding reform, justice reform. And one of the things we kind of agreed on after some conversation is we didn't want to call what we were doing criminal justice reform. Okay. And I start there because we live in a society now where everything gets polarized so quickly because of a title. So when people hear the term criminal justice reform, depending on what your perspective is, what your experience is, what your community is, where you come from on that spectrum, you feel a certain way when you hear it, which starts to, I think, create barriers to what the conversation is really trying to be about. People run to their corner. Criminal justice reform, oh, they want to defund the police, or criminal justice reform, they want to do this. And instead of talking about the evolution of how justice initiatives are undertaken in our country. So I start there with your question, then to go to the point of just like everything else in the evolution of our country, this has to evolve, right? This has to evolve. It has to move. It has to go into places and do things that it may not have had to consider or was ready to consider 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It has to change because we change.
Right.
And the people who are involved and people who are now taking rightful positions as stakeholders are becoming different. So we got to do it, man. So I'm all in favor of the idea that we need to take some strong, long, hard looks and then make movement on what we see regarding what the justice system in our country looks like and how it serves us. Because remember, man, this is supposed to serve us. We don't serve it. right?
Right. What I heard the term police immunity. I'm not fully aware what all it means. I heard it before. Do you know what that means?
Yeah, that man, boy, PA, were you in our meeting last night?
No, sir. That came up.
You done pledged the frat and I ain't heard about it.
Oh, y'all do that?
You the bros? Well, the hot topic these days, out of some of what has transpired over these many years involving misconduct by police, is that a lot of police, a lot of jurisdictions, a lot of places recognize, either through contract or even by law, some levels of what would be considered immunity for police, if not spelled out specifically as law, at least practically or practically manifested in how certain police processes come about. So what does that mean? That means this. Let's make it simple. PA, if you decided that you were going to leave the studio and go out and you were going to shoot someone, the due process would allow for there to be an investigation of you, right?
Right.
And the circumstances surrounding what you did or are alleged to have done. That investigation would begin immediately. You would obviously be given your due process rights to be represented by counsel at the very earliest possibility. But you would have to begin to be accountable for what you did right from the start of it having been done and discovered. Let's move to some of the things that occur where police behavior, I won't even call it misconduct yet, because that's a decision that is to be made, but behavior occurs that results in someone being shot. In a lot of jurisdictions, for instance, let's take the Breonna Taylor case in Louisville. The police officers who were involved in that, by, I believe, and I may misspeak, either by law or by the negotiated contract that their police agency operates under, could not be questioned for 48 hours.
For 48 hours. Wow.
The investigation doesn't really take off until you've had the opportunity to at least begin the process of asking the person who's involved in the behavior their perspective. Of course, they got a Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate themselves. But for 48 hours, you don't get anything.
Man, I didn't know that, Judge. So even if you know that this person was wrong, seen the video, you can't question the officer.
They are not accessible to that investigation for 48 hours. So what does that mean? I don't want to just say or speak the most negative, but for 48 hours, you got an opportunity to kind of line the ducks up the way you want them lined up. Right?
Right.
Before you have to respond to what happened, man. Tell us what happened out there.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that there's maybe not an internal police investigation that begins. I can imagine that the internal workings don't allow for that police officer to be brought under scrutiny immediately. But the prosecutor's office or whatever investigating agency outside of the internal police department can't.
Wow.
So what does that become? The term that is kind of utilized is that becomes a sort of qualified immunity. It's an immunity. You're immune from investigation for a limited period of time, which makes it qualified. If you were immune from that investigation fully, then it would be simply immunity. But it's a in this situation, it is a predetermined period of time that you are immune, essentially, from being investigated.
Man, we got an online comment, Judge. This is from Michael Anthony Smith.
Key
from Houston. So they should not be allowed to be hired by any other force if they are fired because of misconduct.
Perfect. Let's go there for a second. Key raises another point that is part of this police reform effort. The police are not or do not or are not required to share that kind of information with another police hiring agency. They don't share that information.
Wow.
It's almost like, remember, there was a point where, and I'm not disparaging anybody, but these are the facts, where the Catholic Church used to move priests around when there was allegations of potential misconduct. And the new parish where the priests went was not necessarily put on notice of the allegations of the prior parish.
Right.
It's kind of some of the same principle that's involved here.
Wow. There's another question from Lisa Brewster. She said, what happens if there is a video? They can't look at it for 48 hours? Good question.
Nobody has access to anything involving this alleged misconduct or this police behavior for 48 hours. I'd say that again, that it may probably be an internal opportunity. Obviously, internally, the police have procedures to follow regarding the discharge of a police officer's firearm during the course of their duty time. But nobody else is privy to that.
Wow. Judge, when you hear these the historical opinions, or I guess points, of some people call them facts about the police, how they was created, what are your history? You study law for a long time. Did it start off as the slave patrol and then evolved into slave catchers and evolved into, is that true?
I think there is some accuracy in that, amongst probably other considerations being part of how the science of being a police has or policing, let's say it that way, how policing has evolved over time. And that's I think that's a bit of the conflict that we're running up against now, where people are taking the position that it feels like you're being a bit of an occupying sort of a force. It feels like there is a level of accountability strictly to the police that puts the police in a position to do things and have behaviors excused away that people who are not police cannot have excused away. And I think historically, I don't think you can discount the idea that there are some principles inside of policing and its evolution over time that come from what was then considered the exercising of the order that was called for in that day. And the order that was called for in that day was, if you were a person who was enslaved, you don't just get to go where you want to go. You don't just get to do what you want to do. And if you are out of place, you're going to be brought back to that place, because that's what the order called for.
Exactly.
You had to have your paperwork, right? If you were going to be gone, you had to have your paperwork.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you didn't have that paperwork, the order of that day was, then you belong to someone and you belong on their property. And we're going to maintain order and return you to the property and the property owner.
Yeah. Yeah. So the officer who killed George Floyd, I forget his name, Siobhan, can't pronounce his name, but the trial started this week in Minneapolis. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think is going to happen?
I think as a lawyer, you kind of look at how cases begin to kind of gauge how you think they're going to end. Okay. And I think the way this particular case began and evolved was in a manner where a conviction is very conceivable. I think that the immediate involvement of the state attorney general and Ellison, who used to be a congressman,
right?
He came in pretty quickly, and to the credit of the local prosecutors, prosecuting authorities, they yielded pretty quickly and cooperated, I think, pretty quickly from the start towards the idea of there is a problem, let's investigate it, and let's go where the facts take us. And it started out well, or it started out in a manner that I think gives rise to confidence of the integrity of the process going forward and now into its final stages, which is the actual trial stage.
Right.
I have some confidence there. I have some confidence about that.
A couple more online comments. Monica Daniel, that 40 hours make those who are not involved look as though they condone the behavior. I have to defend my son even now. He is a San Antonio police officer. Which is true. The other officers, I'm sure the other officers don't agree. Maybe they don't agree with it either, but you got this code of silence.
Well, you know, it's like everything, PA. There is a culture in everything that happens in our country. You know, there's a culture in my fraternity. There's a culture in my house. Right. There's a culture, you know, in a school community. There's a culture in everything. And part of the culture that has evolved over time is that not every police officer, not most police officers, in my opinion, probably feel good about the things that they see that make, you know, national news that we feel so horrified by.
Exactly.
But the culture is so entrenched and so difficult, like lots of cultures, to make an inroad into, that it kind of becomes ingrained. And one of the things, Monica's having a son on the police department in San Antonio is another thing that we talked about in our meeting last night. He's a San Antonio police officer. as African Americans, as Hispanic Americans, and other minorities in our country, we should not be shying away from becoming part of these police agencies and other parts of the justice system.
Right.
We should be there, because no institution changes strictly from the pressure and advocacy that comes from the outside. It has to also change because there are people who recognize that there's change needed on the inside.
Right. Right.
So we were talking last night about how do we begin to inspire, instill in young people who are looking for careers and things to do with their life, that this is still a place where Black folks belong. We gotta be there. We have to be there, man. Again,
Judge, they try to call them sellouts. We got some good people who are police officers, good brothers. I know some I done mentored. That are on different forces around the country, but they get called sellouts by their own people.
So what is that saying? That's saying to us, PA, in the very right responsibility or very right initiative and effort to hold others accountable for what they do that affects us so negatively, we also have to take our own responsibility and stop calling a brother or sister who decides that police and law enforcement is a career that they want to pursue a sellout.
Exactly.
Listen, the police agencies aren't going away, and they're going to continue to arrest people, and they're going to continue to encounter and engage with people. Does it not make sense that as long as this institution is going to exist, and it will exist for as long as this country exists, that there should be people that you have some understanding, connection to, who know of you and appreciate where you come from and will approach your issue, your problem at that moment with that perspective? I can't imagine, man. I've been on the bench for 23 years, and I've still been the only African American on the bench here in Muskegon County. But I guarantee you that the time I spend there, part of it is spent in the conscious, purposeful effort to help my colleagues appreciate the things about our communities that they may not be cognizant of and appreciative of. Yeah. I'm not a sellout.
Right.
Somebody is going to hear that case. It's not like when you were a kid and if you closed your eyes, the monsters under your bed went away.
Right. Right.
If we all decide that we're just going to disengage from this entire system because anybody who's involved in it is a sellout, where do you think that system is going?
The opposite direction. Right. Backwards.
That system is going to be there.
Going to be there. Exactly.
And it's going to continue to do what it does. The big problem is now there is nobody who looks like you, understands you, has been where you've gone. Now, whether we all, once we get there, we do what I think makes sense for a person to do when they get to that point. That's another conversation. But if nobody is in that room, what do you think is getting talked about in the room? I guarantee you nothing that you're interested in or very little that affects you is getting talked about in that room.
We need to be at the table.
You must be at the table. You not only must you be at the table, like I said, the other conversation is when you're at the table, don't just be glad to be at the table. Sit down, take your jacket off, and reach over and get yourself a plate and start eating like everybody else.
There you go. Well, they had another comment from Michael Anthony Smith, and it was in regards to retaliation. Is the retaliation so severe? The reasoning behind Black officers will not expose bad cops? Is the blue flag the secretive? The
Well,
retaliation on that black cop.
I'm not been inside. So I certainly don't want to be arrogant enough to speak like I know what goes on behind, that blue wall as people talk about. But I would say this, think about the cultures that you are familiar with, the cultures that you come from, and the pressure that sometimes exists within those cultures to see, do, and behave in a certain way.
Right.
And the cost or the price that sometimes is brought to bear when people step outside of that norm.
Right.
I'll use myself as an example, and I'll use my friend. I'm a Q. There are certain things that Qs adhere to as part of the Omega culture. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
What does it look like when I go 180 degrees away from that culture?
Right.
That puts me out on an island sometimes. And do I have what it takes, if I feel that it is, violative of maybe what my personal values are? Am I strong enough to say, hey man, no, I'm not doing that, or I'm not part of that, or that's not going to happen, or whatever.
Right.
Think about how that looks with police. Think about how that looks where police have to depend on other police when they're on that call and they have to call for backup, and you've separated yourself in a certain way because of what you feel is wrongful behavior by your colleagues, and you're on that walkie-talkie calling for backup. Are there people who are small and petty enough to say, well, hey, you want to be on your own? You're on your own.
Right.
I'm coming, but I won't be there as quickly as I normally will. I mean, all kinds of things. And that's really dark and that's really negative, but we have in 2021, we're seeing dark. Who would have thought that the capital of our country would have people climbing up walls and busting out windows?
Right. Right.
We better get real about, what the capabilities of people are.
Judge, we got a comment from Kristen Buckman, who is watching on YouTube over in Ghana, Accra, Ghana, West Africa.
My man, I remember meeting him.
Kristen runs the village. He's the executive for the village. So that's the person I need to connect you with, because I know the Omega Psi Phi's are doing some things in Ghana. So hopefully we can get y'all connected. But he says, so for 23 years, the honorable man is the only man of color on the table. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
I can hold on.
Yeah, you holding it down though. But that's you are. And hopefully we can change that. Hopefully it'll change.
We need, but listen, for any number of years there were no female judges.
Right.
Remember?
Exactly.
You look now and the district court is 50% female. The circuit court is 50% female. The probate court is 50% female.
That's good.
We can make this happen. We gotta make it happen. PA
shocked the world. She shocked the world when she pulled off that upset victory, because people didn't see that coming, and that changed everything. I was happy for her. But that started a little chain going on there. And now, Monica Daniels said, because I fear for my son's life, I asked him that question. He says he does what he is sworn to do. He is a lieutenant now and have fired people. So he's a boss now.
So let's just park there for just a moment. How many police officers in these wrongful and misconduct situations do you hear talking about having fired people?
Torrance Daniels, a real one, though.
Well, I mean, part of the reason that I think that he may have taken those disciplinary steps is because he's got a perspective about the behavior of those who are under his command that he found was unacceptable.
Right.
He didn't make excuses. He didn't bend to the culture necessarily, because that supervisory culture is a little different from the line officer culture. Exactly. And he's got the authority. But more importantly, he's in the room.
Got to be in the room.
He's in the room when the decisions have to be made about discipline, about what these people have seen some officer do. He's in the room to say that's unacceptable. And my recommendation is that that officer needs to be discharged from our department.
Right. But Judge, while we're speaking of being in the room, you stay in the city of Muskegon. Do you feel like the police officers there should be from the community, or should have a residency requirement in order to be an officer? Because it's been time, man. I remember being parked in front of my building, in front of our building on Peck Street, and I guess they was looking for somebody. Police rolled up on me and didn't even know who I was. And I'm like, and I told him, I said, man, you servicing this community, you don't know who I am? If you don't know who I am, you probably don't know too many black folks then. That's the criminals.
Well, you just put your finger on something that I think it has solutions if people are committed to being serious that is a problem. And in my mind, that's a problem.
Yes.
Because every study that you look at, every objective measure says that quality policing includes the familiarity of the community that you police. Knowing who people are is an incredible step towards having an effective police agency and a good policing strategy going forward. So if I agree with you 100%, but I want you to not be too terribly insulted, because I get the same thing when I'm not in this, or I'm not in my robe.
Wow. And I'm sitting outside. I'm outside my business, checking emails before I take off the drive. And he asked me what am I doing there, in front of a business that that my company owned, that are a founder of. So it was like, dude, you don't know the people that you policing. He got an earful and he apologized, but like you need to know who you working for.
Yeah, but let's play that. Let's game that out. And it's not you. It's not an intelligent, confident man who understands his right and his place. Let's say instead it's a young fellow who has had maybe 2-3 people in the family or friends who had bad police encounters. I mean, nothing where they've died or been killed or even injured, just bad engagements with police.
Right.
They feel some kind of way about the police because of what they know about the police through their people.
Right.
That same police encounters that young man or that young woman sitting in their car, minding their business, emailing or texting or FaceTiming, and approaches that person. I think the police do have, I think they have a legitimate right to see who people are and where they are. I think that's part of the regimen that they have and are trained in. Right. But how do you approach that person?
Yeah.
Knock on the window. Hey, what are you doing here?
Hey.
No. Sir, could you roll your window down? I noticed you were sitting here. Is everything okay? Are you in need of assistance, or
Yeah.
Talk to them like they're a human being instead of, hey, you shouldn't be here, and I'm about to find out. And that kid, PA, that kid looks upset. Instead of being PA saying, well, this is my business, da 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 da. What you think I'm doing here?
Right.
Or I'm sitting here minding my business. Why you all up in it? Or, whatever.
Right.
That they have become angered because of how they've been approached based on what they know about other people's encounters. And where does that go? It takes off. It becomes one more negative encounter. So what's the answer? Training to help police officers understand that you are here to help and to serve and to be decent to people until you need not to be decent with people.
Right.
It takes familiarity. And I'm not necessarily, I'm not going to go to the extent that I think all police officers in a community should be in that community. I think people have the right to live where they choose to live. I really believe that.
Right.
But if I make the conscious choice that I'm not going to be a part of this community, which gives me a more ready opportunity to be familiar with the community, then as a professional, as a police professional, I need to redouble my efforts to make sure that I know who people are. If I have a perimeter area that I patrol, why wouldn't I know who you are? Because I've stopped in your place of business and say, hey, man, my name is Officer Pittman, and I patrol this, and I was always interested in who owns this. And it's you. What's your name, sir? That's community policing.
Right.
But listen, here's where I would criticize police officers. I see police officers come in and out of the Hall of Justice in their uniforms. I have spoken to them. I have seen others speak to them. They don't respond back.
No, Judge. Come on now.
They keep walking. I mean, not all, not most, not the majority, not the great majority, but there are some officers.
Man, you need to drop some names, man. I come out with a mixtape. You come up with some names, Judge. Hit me up later on. Just text me some names, man.
I'll end this here. So my nephew is a state trooper.
Exactly. Yeah. Great one.
One of the things, if you ever notice state troopers, and I'm not saying they're perfect, they have a training that says that you speak to everyone that you pass as you encounter them. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. They walking from their police car to the Hall of Justice, you will see them speak to 3-4 people. They don't wait to be spoken to, they speak to people.
Right. And they smiling. Kyle, he patrolled the fireworks up at the Heights, him and the other officers. It was a different type of atmosphere with their presence, and compared to maybe a Muskegon Police Department or a county deputy. Do they got any black deputies?
I don't think there are any on the street. I think there are a couple who are inside of the jail.
Wow.
But I mean, it's not just Muskegon. There's police agencies all over the county,
right,
where there are some officers, not all, not most, but there are a few officers who don't take seriously the idea of acknowledging people who acknowledge them.
Man,
and that could go a long way. That could go a long way in knocking down one more barrier between the community that they serve and the agency.
Hey, that's why I'm different. You, Judge. I'll put that residency requirement in there. You got to stay in the city, man. I don't care. You getting all this money. You can't be coming from Houghton, Whitehall, Grand Haven, cashing in on us, arresting our folks, going back to your community, paying taxes there. You know what I mean? You don't have that connection, so.
Well, and I listen, I ain't mad at you. And I certainly appreciate it and I respect it. And I wouldn't have a problem if that became what was, negotiated between the city and these unions.
Right.
But I look at it from this perspective. My primary concern, I don't care where you live. My primary concern is when you are here, how do you treat me? How do you treat the community that provides your livelihood?
Exactly.
I don't need you to leave, Pentwater or wherever you're coming to work from. You can stay in Pentwater. That's fine. I'm good with that. I'm okay with that because you've earned that right. I think that's our right to live where we want to live.
Right.
But when you come for those 8 hours, 12 hours that you're working in my community, be part of my community.
Exactly. That's tough. Here's the last police comment. Now, of course, we know we expect this from this guy, Big Rob. Most of you police around Muskegon are cowards. That's why they don't live in the community. They serve their badge with a badge and a gun, but won't speak to you without that badge and gun. Just my opinion. So, but you knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Sits on the police review board from Muskegon too. One last, because we already 47 minutes in, and we just talked about police review and the policy with the George Floyd policing policy. Just 2 days ago, Joe Biden, top aide, says the White House will start acting now on reparations for African Americans. That came from Cedric Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on reparations? Are you against it? Are you for it? If you're against it, I want let me get your share. But let me know what your thoughts on reparations. What should it look like?
As far as I want to go with this is I am absolutely not against reparations. I think it is a conversation whose time, a serious conversation, and then some legitimate action from that conversation is long overdue.
What do you think it should look like, Judge?
See, that's the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be the conversation. You hear me use this term all the time, PA. You laugh at me when I say it, especially when people call with some of this, or people take some of these positions. You can't apply simple-headed solutions to complicated issues. You got to spend some time getting into the layers of what these issues present. If you're going to be fair, you have to take into account the perspective of the people who will be impacted. And an issue involving reparations impacts everyone. So you have to take into account their perspective. That's their right. Just like as a minority, and we're minorities in this country, I don't want the majority to just go and do things without taking into account my perspective, without hearing me. So by the same token, we should be heard. They should be heard. But that hearing should be on the road to, we're going to do something.
Right.
Something must occur because there have been any number of promises made since the emancipation of African Americans in this country, with no return on those promises. And the economic position, and reparations is about the economics that lead to then social justice.
Mm-hmm.
The economics have never been fair to me and you and folks who look like me and you who are descendants of people who were made promises.
Right.
Our net worth, our wealth, our ability to grow our net worth has been, I won't say hampered, it has been non-existent for any number of years. From my father back to my grandfather, back to my great-grand,
Right. Right.
And as a result, there's been a head start for people in being able to accumulate generational wealth.
Exactly.
That we can't even wave at it.
Yeah.
Talk about see it. We can't even wave at it.
Online comment from Ken Shelton said no federal taxes for blacks for 20 years could be one. I'm down with that. First 20 years of working, but you don't start making the majority of your money until later in life. My suggestion, Judge, mine would have been free education, free health care, and no federal taxes and property tax. Indefinitely.
Ooh, I can hear Mitch McConnell now.
Hey, I mean, we got what, 200 plus years? I mean, with interest.
So here's one suggestion that I do have in how to approach this. Get a team of economists, conservative, liberal, and let them do the objective work of quantifying the value of slave labor, the years of wealth building that slave labor fortified for the people who were the beneficiaries of the slave labor and trade, and put it in terms of 2021 numbers.
Right.
Let's see what that looks like in today's dollars. And then just keep putting that document on every table where that conversation is going to take place.
Because this country got a history of paying reparations.
Darn tootin'. It paid reparations to our enemies. It paid reparations to people who were looking to take us out in wars.
Exactly. Yeah. Judge, before we go, got a few more minutes. PPOs, what are we doing on that? Is it slowing down? It's getting worse.
That's all really? I'll say. I'll just nod. If people on the radio, I'm nodding. Yes, it's worse.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. What do you think is all maybe COVID related because of being forced to be around each other?
Certainly.
So what is it? Women jumping on their boyfriends? What's going on, Judge?
We're getting some of that. The fists are flying both ways. But here's why I say it's getting worse. I don't have any quarrel with that situation. I'm laughing about it. I don't have any quarrel with that situation deserving an order of protection. My quarrel, and why I say it's getting worse, is that people have stopped or do not engage in the common sense of, this is a situation that I don't like. Let me figure out how to extricate myself from this situation I don't like. Instead of doing that, they run to this place to get a PPO to resolve the issues that they should be resolving for themselves. I give you an example. I don't like him coming in my house. I don't like her coming in my house, and she's always arguing and nagging at me. Da 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 da. I want a PPO. Okay. So I conduct an inquiry like most of my colleagues do about the circumstances. Well, ma'am, how does she get into your house? Well, I let her in. She comes and she comes over and I let her in. I say, but you didn't want her in your house. No. Well, why did you let her in?
Pretty simple.
That's called common sense.
Right.
If I don't want you around me, PA,
Right.
the one place that I know you're not going to get into is my house.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, how does she get into your house? Well, she just walks in. Well, sir, do you lock your door? No. Well, how about you lock your door?
Exactly. Wow.
Well,
Judge, is social network, are you seeing people
oh my God.
going at it because of social network and
Oh my
asking you to
God.
make them not post anything, or can you stop them from posting stuff about me on Facebook, our personal business and all that stuff?
Bruh, if they closed Facebook down or the gram or TikTok or whatever else, if all of those were closed for, let's say, 3 months, I could take July off.
Woo. I need to see. Are these complaints? Are they public? The complaints?
Yes, that's public record.
Oh, I gotta do it for you.
That's public record. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
There's very little that comes through our courts that is not viewable by the public. You know, lots of the juvenile stuff
Okay.
is confidential,
Right.
for obvious reasons. Lots of the mental issues is confidential, that kind of thing. But PPOs, man, listen, PA, between PPOs and Zoom,
Uh-huh. That's what you do.
It's off the chain, bro.
Wow.
It's off the chain.
Wow.
Listen,
now,
okay, you may have a question, but you asked me, I got to share this anecdote with you about PPOs because it ties PPOs and Zoom together.
Okay.
I was conducting early on in the pandemic, I was conducting a hearing on a petition for a PPO. A woman brought the petition. She was deathly afraid of her boyfriend. So I held the hearing to determine whether she should have that PPO. She's on one screen, right? He's on the other screen.
Okay.
She's on and she's crying and she just upsets herself so badly, describing her fear and apprehension. She's so upset that I say, listen, man, why don't we just take a minute, let you compose yourself, and we'll resume. We stop. I see him get up from the chair that he's in and leave the screen. And where does he go? He walks through the background of her screen. Goes and comes back and has a cup of coffee and hands it to her. Thank you. And pats her on her shoulder and then goes back and sits in his screen.
This was a PPO hearing?
Yes.
And they're in the same room together at the same house?
They're in the same house together. They're not necessarily in the same room. They're in the same house on separate devices, on separate screens.
So what's the PPO for then? You kidding me, Judge?
We go back on the record, PA. I'm like, ma'am, and I use this name, is Mr. So-and-so, are you and he in the same house? Well, yes. I'm like, well, ma'am, whose house is this? Is this your house or his house or the house you are? Well, this is the house we shared, but I had moved out because I was so afraid of him. I'm like, well, man, why didn't you stay out? Why are you in here? It went on like this. And she never alleged that he had actually assaulted her. You know, he never had hit her or anything. He had never physically assaulted. That's why we had a hearing as opposed to me just immediately issuing an what's called an ex parte. If you allege, you know, and it makes sense in your allegations that you've been assaulted, you're 9 times out of 10, you're going to get an emergency PPO right off the bat. But if you don't, then we conduct a hearing.
Okay.
And that's what I'm talking about, PA.
Wow.
If you're scared of him, why is he around you? Why are you around him?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, last comment, Big Rob. This is something different, changing the whole subject here. Said, Judge, your brother Paul Robinson asks, you ain't a Mason yet? So you're not a Mason, Judge? One of the few judges that's not in the Illuminati and secret society?
Listen, so Paul Robinson is a Q too. He a bruh.
Okay. And
I think my friend Robert is trying to get me to come join the Masons so he can get his hands on me. And his eyes may shine and his teeth may grit, but his hands on me will never get.
Yeah, he's trying to become a 95th degree. You know.
Yeah. He said 90.
Yeah, he get you in there. They'll create another degree as they create something, you know.
Robert is going to be a 33rd to the 3rd power degree.
Right. All right, Judge. Before we go, I don't know if you noticed the background, the color of the background. Yeah. I did that for you, man.
I see that. That's is that green there?
No, I'm talking about the background on the Omega Psi Phi.
Oh, okay. Okay. On the
screen here.
The screen. Oh,
yeah.
Are you? Come on, man.
Yeah, I did that for you, man. And when I hooked this together, like let me get the judge. Let me put these colors up there. The Omega Psi Phi.
So now go back to the lab since you hooking the bros up and make the little squares gold.
It'll make me work. I make the squares go.
And you be on point, PA. PA, can I get you online, man? You want to be the bros? Can I get you to be a Q?
Man, I just can't be deal with that paddling stuff, man.
What paddling?
I mean the initiation stuff y'all got to do, man.
Of what do you speak?
I don't know. I don't know what y'all doing now, man. I don't know. I would be honored to be a Q. I mean,
come on, find out. Come on, find out.
I was a nasty boy in college anyway. All right.
Hey man, good to see you, man. I know this has been a time of the year that is a bit of a challenge for you.
Oh man, last week. Yeah.
God bless your heart, man. God bless your heart.
Thank you, Judge. Getting better though. You told me to get better, and we're getting there. But that pain never go away though. You're right.
Hey, listen, man. I know we got to go, but I wanted to just acknowledge, the passing of Mrs. Vines in the community.
So which Dwight Vines?
Dwight and Leonard and Cotton and all those guys,
oh wow, your mother?
Their mother, yep.
I didn't know that.
I think they said she was 90. She was in her 90s, 94 maybe, or something like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But another pillar, man.
Amazing job as a parent, man.
Another pillar, man. Another pillar,
Yes.
They don't make them like that no more, PA.
I'm telling you.
There's some good
proud of our legacy.
Yep. There's some good folks in our community, but we won't see the likes of those type parents and people in our community ever again, man. And I just wanted to acknowledge that passing and my friend Dwight and his big brothers and all of them, man. Good, just good people, man. Just the people
Wow.
who made the heights, you know.
That's it.
So God bless them in her passing.
All right, Judge, until next time, thank you so much. We appreciate you, man.
Man, it's always a pleasure to be in your presence, man. Always.
Same here, Judge. Love you,
Thank
man.
you. Love you too, man.
All right, take care.
God bless.